Man, I gotta tell you, this is a daunting task to sit here and review an auteur's work like Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. This movie is such a labor of love. It's such a mission. That's what I felt watching this movie, is that Nolan obsessed over the subject matter. He felt a deep, deep responsibility to honor this person and honor the story of the first atomic bombs being created in the Manhattan Project, and all of the nuance of the details and the backstabbing and all of the warnings that Oppenheimer and other scientists were trying to give the U.S. government about what was going to happen after these weapons of mass destruction were first built and then dropped in Japan, and what that was going to do to the world. And you can see the horrors on people's faces. You can feel them reconciling what they have built, especially Killian Murphy as Oppenheimer. And he's amazing in this movie. He is unlike any other character I have seen him play. He has haunting eyes, and he uses them to full effect in all of his roles, but you can see and feel the haunt that he lives with every day. He's having night terrors and visions, and he just looks unwell. He looks like he's just living a life in hell, even though he's a scientist and he's driven by curiosity and then eventually by duty to his country, and he pushes a whole team of scientists, and it's like a who's who of physicists and scientists from around the world, including Tom Conti as Albert Einstein has a couple of brief cameo appearances in there. But we see Richard Feynman played by Jack Quaid. We see Benny Safdie playing Edward Teller. We even hear from Enrico Fermi of the Fermi Paradox fame, played by Danny DeFerrari. There's a whole cavalcade of different actors, and sometimes it became a little distracting because Oscar-winning, world-class, top-caliber actors will pop in and just deliver a couple of lines, like Gary Oldman as Harry S. Truman. Robert Downey Jr. runs away with his performance as Louis Strauss, who has got all kinds of machinations and ideas in his head about what he wants out of the Manhattan Project and what he wants out of Oppenheimer and the other scientists that he knows. But there's lots of other great performances. Very impressed by Josh Hartnett, who disappears into his role as a scientist named Ernest Lawrence. And I was also happy to see Alden Ehrenreich pop up in this movie. Yes, Han Solo, and he does some great work in this movie as well. But you know what? Everybody does some incredible work. Casey Affleck's in here, Matt Damon, Kenneth Branagh. It's honestly a who's who of top-tier talent that Christopher Nolan was able to employ. And it is a really interesting tale. Clearly, it would have to be. And it's also fascinating to see science at play and to see these physicists kind of try to determine and figure out exactly what will work and what won't work. And then eventually, it all leads up to this incredible test explosion, which I understand was all practical, and it's horrifying and it's massive. And then there's just this beautiful imagery suggesting some of the just nightmares that Oppenheimer has about where his technology and all of this incredible work that these scientists have done is going to be taken. And also some of the short-sighted duplicity that's shown by some of the members of the U.S. government, not really thinking through what this is going to mean, this escalation of these world-ending weapons. And so we get deep into the weeds on all of this stuff. We also see the human frailties that Oppenheimer has. He has various relationships throughout the film, one with Florence Pugh and one with Emily Blunt. And he's also tortured by his lack of ability to have any real human interaction and compassion for some of the people in his life. Oppenheimer definitely has an enormous ego. He's very prideful, and he is also very aware of his abilities. It's interesting to see this imperfect person portrayed so well. I mean, there's an element of heroicism in his brilliance that is examined, but also an element of why didn't he step up sooner in this as well? Why didn't he voice his concerns with a little bit more power? Why didn't he fight a little bit more to kind of slow down the pace of the development of all of these weapons? And maybe, as the movie kind of explores, there was no stopping it. Once the bull was in the china shop, everything was going to go to hell all across the world with these things. And honestly, that's the nightmare that keeps Oppenheimer awake. I do feel like the movie is a little toothless, though. I do have to say that it's a fascinating story. It's an intellectual story. It's exquisitely crafted, but it's also a little bit removed from witnessing the full, total physical devastation that this technology is capable of. And I was expecting that. I wasn't hoping for it. I was kind of a little freaked out thinking about what I was going to witness when I saw this movie, and it doesn't go that far with it. It suggests more than it illustrates. And the movie also spends a great deal of time in this kind of courtroom setting, judging the man, judging Oppenheimer and his decisions and his choices. And so I was reflecting a little bit on Oliver Stone's JFK and the way that he did his courtroom stuff and mixed his media, somewhat like what Christopher Nolan does here, going to black and white and into color. I saw it on a 70 millimeter screen, and it was exquisite. It was really, really lovely. But it definitely got me thinking about JFK. It also got me thinking a little bit about Schindler's List. And I think both of those movies, as cerebral as they were, also really played with our emotions. And I don't think that Oppenheimer really got me emotionally. I wasn't like cheering, I wasn't devastated, I wasn't crying, I was just intellectually stimulated and impressed. But I wasn't blown away by the power of the emotional work that these humans must have had. And honestly, I see that it's a really, really well-crafted film, and I'm walking away thinking that people should see this movie. But as a fan of Christopher Nolan, I don't think that this is his most interesting work. It's certainly not a movie that I would want to watch again and again. It doesn't hold a candle to The Dark Knight for me. It doesn't hold a candle to Memento. Inception was cooler. Like, he's done some stuff that was also incredibly intellectual, but it also had this, I don't know, thrilling energy and some emotional energy that is a little bit missing in this film. This film feels incredibly mature. It feels incredibly adult. And it feels responsible, and it feels tuned and crafted, and it's beautiful. But I've seen it once, and that's okay. I'll reflect on it, I'll think about it, but it certainly didn't hit me with the same punch that something like Saving Private Ryan or Schindler's List both did. And I was expecting this movie to do that. So I'm going to give Oppenheimer an 8 out of 10.